Hey, writers, I'm so excited to be with you again today to try to really take our writing again to that next level. You guys did such a good job when we got together last about generating ideas using our strategies. We had learned about life maps. We also talked about issues, people, moments charts. And I know in your independent writing time, you did an excellent job of curating a ton of ideas for personal narratives, and some of you even started drafting some of those. So we're in a really good place for our work today, which is going to be trying to get words on paper. I know how hard it is to get momentum in your writing when you have this great idea and then you sit there and the pen won't move or the cursor starts to blink over and over again. And so we want to try to move through that. So today I'm going to teach you that one way to gain momentum in your writing is to use a technique called flash drafting, which is putting as many words on the paper as possible, trying not to stop, not worrying about editing, grammar, and all of that. And that when we go to flash draft, sometimes it really helps us to utilize ideas and strategies to plan. So being able to take our idea and expand it out, to stretch it out, and jotting out some different things that will help us when we go to draft that we can use as a visual tool. So I want you to watch me as I do this. I remember yesterday when we were talking through our ideas, one of my favorite ideas that I'm wanting to write about is this one about going to the drag race with my dad, which happened when I was a little kid. And we stood in this really long line to get the turkey leg, and then I ended up dropping it, and it was a whole deal. It's a funny story, but it's also a special one because my dad loves to talk about it still, sometimes at Thanksgiving. So uh, I'm going to write about that one today. So I'm going to use a strategy called an emotional timeline. And what an emotional timeline does is it charts out the events of that small moment, but it also pairs some of the emotions that you feel. And this is something that we create almost as I'm talking this out with a partner. It really helps to talk the idea out and fill it out. So I'm going to do that with you. I would be doing it live with a pencil and recording that, but different times. So we're having to do this via video. So I'm going to walk through my idea and I'm going to use this emotional timeline strategy. So I want you to watch me as I do this and notice the things that I'm doing and how I'm kind of toggling back and forth between the two. So my dad and I didn't really get to see each other much. We were only together on the weekends. And for this special weekend, he was going to take me to a drag race. I didn't really know what to expect. I'd never been to a drag race before, but I was just super excited to get to hang out with my dad. And as we pulled in, we had to park in the very, very back of the parking lot. Now, it was Texas summer, which meant the concrete was like sizzling. You could fry bacon on it. And being a little kid who didn't have much patience for being uncomfortable, I was super hot. And even though we just got there, I was already probably pretty whiny and tired. Felt like it was going to be forever until we got up to the front. And as we got up to the front, close to the ticket booth, I saw this big silver little RV stand on wheels, and it had a big sign above it that said turkey legs, $4 each. And I knew in that moment that I had gone from like needing nothing to ravenous. I was starving. And I knew that we couldn't go inside, that I was going to have to convince my dad that he needed to buy me a turkey leg. It was very important. So I begged him. And when he looked back, he saw that the line for the turkey legs was so long, it was already like halfway back into the parking lot. And so he kept going, "Are you sure? Are you sure we're going to miss?" And I was just like, "Dad, I want it. I'm so hungry. I'm going to starve to death." So we trudged all the way back to that line. I was not going to give in. So even though I was hot, I was starving, I was so excited that I was going to get this just delicious, juicy turkey leg, right? So we stood in line forever. We finally get there. Dad buys two turkey legs. He's shocked by how expensive they are because $4 each, that's $8 on two turkey legs. And this was a long time ago. And so I was so excited. This is the best day of my life. I'm getting to do this new fun thing. And now I've got a turkey leg. And so they're wrapped in silver foil. And my dad's holding on to both of them as we walk up the bleachers. Now our tickets were the cheapest ones, and so they were all the way back to the back of the stands. So we were having to climb all of these different stairs. And as we were doing that, I was still euphoric. I was excited, but then I heard a bang, and it scared me so bad that I dropped my turkey leg. As soon as we got up to the stands, I dropped it through the rafters, and it fell onto the ground. I didn't even get to take one bite. I started crying. I was so upset. And so as I turned to my dad, he looked at me and he just gave me his turkey leg. And I was so appreciative. I couldn't believe it. I know. I remember I stared at him and I thought to myself, like, there's no way. I can't believe I'm not in trouble. And I remember the look on my dad's face as he was just like looking at that turkey leg and looking at me having to make this decision. And he handed it to me. And that's something that stands out to me a lot when I think about my relationship with my dad now as an adult, is that he always was willing to just give me whatever I needed in order to make sure that I had what I needed, even if it meant that he went without himself. That doesn't mean he gave me what I wanted, but making sure that I had food, making sure that I had that quality time, even if it meant that he didn't get to go and, hang out and just be a normal single adult on the weekends. He was dedicating a lot of that time to me. And so I feel like this moment is kind of a metaphor of my relationship with my dad, which makes it really special. So, did you see what I did? I talked through the event and I made sure that for each of those markers of what had actually happened, that I was pairing that with some kind of an emotion. So that way, whenever I go to draft, I can use this as a guide and almost do what I was doing in that process and toggle back and forth to not only tell what's happening, but to show the emotion, whether that be through the dialogue, whether that be through describing a setting, whatever it is, but to be able to capture those emotions so that when I go to flash draft and I start to feel stuck, I can use this emotional timeline and tick off those pieces as a checklist to myself to keep my pen moving or to keep that cursor going. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a piece of paper, or if you want to do it digitally, that's fine, but I want you to create an emotional timeline. So if you're using a piece of paper, that might just look like drawing that little upside down U, almost like a rainbow across, and then a smaller one underneath. And I want you to just take a couple of minutes and pause this video, and you're going to create an emotional timeline. And something that might even be more helpful is if there's somebody in your house that you could use as a partner, you could do this emotional timeline while you're telling your story to your partner. So just go ahead and click pause for a couple of minutes. And whenever you have your emotional timeline, you've been able to maybe talk that out if somebody's around and available, and then you can come back and push unpause. Writers, you now have an emotional timeline and you are ready to get in there and flash draft. So I want to give you some quick tips as you go off to do this work independently, because depending on the work that you did yesterday or the last time we got together when we were gathering ideas, this might look a little different for you. So if you are somebody that gets stuck a lot, I want you to think about a plan, because our goal for today is that we flash draft our personal narrative for 25 minutes without stopping. So if you're somebody that's like, I don't know if I can write for 25 minutes, I get stuck really, really easily. Something that you could do is to set some small timers. So maybe you set a timer for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes and you flash draft as much as you can during that time. Stop your timer, stand up, take a stretch, set another timer that's smaller to try to equal that 25. Maybe you have an idea that you have a lot to say about and you are ready to go and you don't think that's going to be an issue. So then you could go ahead and just go for it and write the entire 25 minutes. Some of you may have retold your story, and maybe in that emotional timeline, you realize, man, I don't remember some parts, or I feel like I need to add more detail. So if you want to spend some time going back to that emotional timeline and making some changes, that's totally fine. You can do that. Or maybe you're somebody who got so excited in the gathering process that you've already selected an idea and you started that drafting process. So if that's you, I would encourage you to take that emotional timeline and use it as a sort of checklist to see which pieces that you've covered, and then pick up where you left off and just continue to try to stretch that moment out and write as many details as you can. But again, one thing that we have to remember is when we're flash drafting, we are not trying to make perfect decisions. That's going to take place when we start to think about strategic sentence structures and word choices. We're going to be revising and going back into our text several times. So for flash drafting, we're really not worrying about that. All right, writers, you can revisit this video at any point, but I'm excited to see what you come up with in your flash draft. Off you go.